All right. Now we had uh, continued in the Shishopanayana Adhyaya up to the seventh sloka. Now we continue from there onwards. At the same time, I would like to apologize for all the confusion which had occurred in the last session. Okay. Now, in the after that Shishya Upanayana, the teacher advises the student to how about
Sorry, sir.
how to
Sir,
behave.
screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I'll do that. Hmm. I hope it's visible now. Is it
Yes, sir.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, in that the advice to the student is about how to behave with the patients. Now, that's again a proof to say that in the initial stage itself, the student was allowed to deal with the patients in the beginning itself, beginning of the course itself. Now, during that advice, so the teacher advises about the student like how to select the patient, prioritization of the treatment. That prioritization of the patient in the sense, Dvija Guru Daridra Mitra Pravrajita Upanata Sadhu Anatha Abhipagatanam Cha Atmabandhavan Iva Swabheshadehi Pratikartavyam Evam Sadhu Bhavati. The patients who are of the obedient patients and who have a disciplined life and who need to be respected are those who are really orphans and don't have caretakers. They need to be treated like as if they are your own relatives. Evam sadhu bhavati. This is a right prescription. At the same time, during that period, there was another issue, a right of the physician to reject a patient or refuse the treatment. And the Dhammapada says like, Vyadha Shakunika Patita Papakaranamcha Nakatikartavyam Evam Vidya Prakashate Mitra Yasho Dharmartha Kamanam Sata Prapnoti. Hunters and astrologers and those who are otherwise sinners, they are not to be treated. Of course, in the another context later we will come to that next in the Shishana again the same thing would be repeated. During that, even those criminals also are the excluded from the choice of treatment. So, right of physician to prefer or refuse the treatment to a patient. That's an issue of legal issue. Now, in the present situation, with the legal position of the regulation of medical practice now, a physician is not supposed to refuse the treatment to any of the patient who comes to him. And no physician shall arbitrarily refuse the treatment to a patient. This is the law which says. And of course, this is exactly what we have, that code of etiquettes. Now, code of etiquette is not really a this constitutional law, but constitutional law, whenever there is an issue, code of etiquettes will be referred to. So hence, it's having an equal position as that of the law. But there are some certain situations where the treatment could be refused, and those are, one is a physician may refuse to treat the patient when the possible management of that is not within the range of experience of the treating physician. Suppose a physician finds himself incapable of treating that condition, he should not treat that patient. He may refuse the treatment, but he has an obligation of referring the patient to another physician, or a medical practitioner having an incapacity that he himself is being ill, and because of his illness or his incapacity the patient may not be treated well. In that condition too, a refusal of treatment is possible. So as per the current existing proved law, these are tested in the court, and these are the only two situations where the patient would be patient treatment can be refused. So refusal of the treatment, unlike sushruta period where the physician would be deciding about the treatment based upon the character or maybe the social history of the patient. Now, with the current law, you are not supposed to do that. Even if the patient is a known criminal, you need to treat him because the law doesn't permit you to refuse treatment. And he may, of course, at the same time, there is an issue of controversy. In the same guideline, there is another sentence saying a physician is free to choose whom he will serve, but he should however respond to any request for his assistance in an emergency. Once having undertaken a case, the physician should not neglect the patient, nor should he withdraw from the case without giving adequate notice to the patient and family. This is the existing current law, which was really formulated in 2002. In Western countries like USA, a rude behavior of the patient is good enough or legally sound enough to refuse the treatment. Now, a similar issue had to be added to the our Indian law, and this was pressed by IMA, and this there was a modification, amendment to that rules of ethics of 2002 in 2016, but that the clause says a patient or his family who have troubled a doctor for no logical reason, but usually to dishonor legitimate fees, those who create nuisance of any sort, indulge in violence of any sort like verbal, physical, destructive pollution, coming in alcoholic or under some intoxicated state, need to be refused to the treatment. Now, this is again a suggestion, still it's not in the legal position. A rude behavior of the patient being a sufficient legal ground to refuse the treatment in India still is not in a strong legal base. It's one of the recommendations, and the words are vague. So anyway, that's about the issue which we need to know about it. Now, the last part of the sentence, the Shishopalayan is when the student is taken into the study or for the study, everyone would be pressing upon the student to read and read throughout. But a scientific method of studying would not be a continuous reading. Rather, there has to be some gaps, and those gaps, intervals, are कृष्णे अष्टमी तन्निधने अहनि द्वे शुक्ले तथापि एवं अहर्द्विसन्ध्यम्. That's in a fortnight, the first day of the fortnight, that's full moon day, and the last day of the fortnight, new moon day, and eighth day of the fortnight. So it's once in a week there will be a off, weekly off. Now in the current system, we consider Sunday as off, whereas in the olden days the off days were the first day of the fortnight, eighth day of the fortnight, 15th day of the fortnight. So virtually it's as good as what we have now. So the present system is a rather copy of the existing system which was in the Gurukula. Now, in addition to that regular holidays, the other holidays could be Akala Vidyut Skanayitnu Ghoshe, Swatantra Rashtra Kshitipa Vyathasu, Smashana Yana Adyatana Ahaveshu, Mahotsava Outpatika Darshaneshu, Nadhyam Anyeshu Jayeshu Vipraha, Nadhyate Na Ashutinata Nityam. Now, you are not supposed to read when there is a natural calamity like lightning or flood or so on, Akala Vidyut Skanayitnu Ghoshe, or when there is a national calamity, Swatantra Rashtra Kshitipa Vyathasu, like a war or maybe a leader has died and so on. If there is a issue related to the nation, and the area where you study also is important. You are not supposed to study in a, a mortuary, smashrana, or you are not supposed to study during travel, or in between a bar, you are not supposed to study, or you are not supposed to study in the middle of a festival, uh, or outpatika darshan issue. Whenever there is a possibility of natural calamity, you are not supposed to study. Now, sushruta says, in any of those conditions which are considered as anadhyaya. Now, in Vedic study, Manusmriti considers many of those reasons of the anadhyaya. Of course, there is a huge detail like, but I just summarize that what the Manusmriti says about anadhyaya are, they are either naisargika karana, that's naisargika karana like either lightning, flood, and so on, or yajniya karana, because there are certain days which are considered as more auspicious for the yajna, and that yajna should be given priority, but not the study. This is what Manusmriti says. And Kaladeshiya Karana. Kaladeshiya is time and place conditions, which includes all that. The national issues, or social issues, or its issues related to the festival and so on. So that's about the method of study. And na ashutinatha nityam. before you start study, you should be physically and mentally clean. This is what the suggestion for the study. So, Sushruta Samhita is not simply a textbook of medicine, it's a textbook of education too. So, that's about the Shishyopanayaniya Adhyaya. The next would be Adhyayana Sampradaniya Adhyaya. Now, Sampradana word means Samyak Pravibhajyadanam, giving in a detailed manner. Now, in the present system, we have a method of giving a syllabus, a comprehensive syllabus before the study. Now, Adhyayana Sampradani Adhyaya is about the same. There is a summary of what you are supposed to study. The course of study is given to the student. Now, that of course, we will just skip many of the details in this chapter because they are not very critical issues. प्रागभिहितं सविंशम् अध्यायशतं पञ्चसु स्थानेषु तत्र सूत्रस्थानम् अध्यायाः षट्चत्वारिंशत् 46 chapters in the सूत्रस्थान, षोडश निदानानि 16 in the निदानस्थान, दश शारीराणि 10 chapters in the शारीरस्थान, चत्वारिंशत् चिकित्सितानि, अष्टौ कल्पाः 40 chapters in the चिकित्सास्थान, and Astokalpa, 8 sthanas are in the 8 chapters in the Kalpasthana, Taduttaram Shashasti Uttarasthana, 66. Now, the names of the chapters are given, Vedotpati, Shishayam, and of course, there is not much to be discussed, it is only about the names of the chapter, and as we are planning to study all the chapters, I think that's not an important issue which we need to spend more time, but there is a definition of the Sutrasthana. सूचनात् सूत्रनाच्चैव सवनाच्च अर्थसन्ततेः. The Sutrasthana is defined as a comprehensive chapter or comprehensive course as or module of study where all the subject or the course is presented in a nutshell in a brief manner, and it's also organized in such a way, Sutranath, it's organized in such a way that you will have a perfect idea of what you are going to study, and it gives a moderate detail and control. That's the Sutrasthana. Now, in the Nidanasthana, again, it's the same. The chapters Vatavyadikam, Arshamsis, Ashmarisha, Bagandhara, etc. Hetu Lakshana Nirdeshat Nidanani Shodasha. The Nidanasthana would have the description of causes of the disease, etiology of the disease, the symptomatology of the disease, as well as the assessment of the diagnosis of the disease. They are the contents of the Nidanasthana. Sharirasthana, now this is again a point which I have mentioned earlier. Only after studying about the pathology, the normal physiology is studied. In the Sharirasthana, it's all Bhuta Chintaraja Shuddhi, etc. And Vijnanatham Sharirasya Vishajam Yoginam Api. The Sharirasthana gives a clear idea about the situation of the body or condition of the body, details of the body, both for physicians as well as yogis. So it's not only for physician. The study of the anatomy is Sharira is not only anatomy. It's a functional anatomy. So Ayurvedic Sharira is not only anatomy, because when you say anatomy, it's related to the dead body. But the Ayurvedic Sharira is about the functional anatomy. It contains the anatomy structure, but more important than that, the function is given more importance, and hence a combination of both physiology and anatomy is the idea. Now, in the current medical system also, there is a new concept developing, and that new concept developing is to merge that anatomy in with the physiology and come to a new concept of functional anatomy, where that dead body dissection is almost given the least priority as such. So that's the new thought coming up, and that new thought, the guideline for the new thought, could be present in Ayurvedic studies as such. Then comes the Chikitsa Sthana. The Chikitsa Sthana, Prayashchittam Prashavanam Chikitsa Shantikarmacha Pariyaya Tasya Nirdeshat Chikitsa Sthana Muchyate. The Chikitsa is not only the treatment. Now, what we now consider is a treatment in sense giving a medicine and saying that goodbye. But that's not. The Chikitsa is a Prayashchittam, a consoling the patient and ensuring that the patient's psychological condition also is proper, and then prashamana, the reduction of the symptoms are such. Then there is another view, the shanti karma. Shanti karma is any of the correction. correction to whatever the disease, the defect has occurred. Something like rehabilitation. Shanti karma is a rehabilitation. So chikitsa is not only a treatment of giving some medicines and prescribing some medicine alone. It's about the counseling of the patient, ensuring that the patient has rehabilitated properly and the symptoms are reduced as such. That's the chikitsa. And the chikitsa sthana is about that as such. Then asto kalpaha samakyahataha vishabheshara kalpana. The kalpasthana is mainly about the treatment of visha, the poisoning, different sets of conditions of poisoning, and how to treat those conditions as such. Uh, that's the issue. Then the Uttara Tantra, there is a controversy about Uttara Tantra, whether that Uttara Tantra is a original part of the Sushruta Samhita or not, whether it was added later on. That's the controversy. Anyway, in the Uttara Tantra, अतः परं स्वनान्मयीमा तंत्रम् उत्तरं मुच्यते अधिकृत्य कृतं यस्मात् तंत्रम् एतत् उपद्रवान् औपद्रविक इत्येषः तस्य अग्रत्वात् निरुच्यते. It's mainly about the upadrava, the other residual complications, or treating with the complications of the disease is the major source or major aim of the Uttara Tantra. In that, the first few chapters are about the Shalakya, so hence it's also called as a Shalakya Tantra, or then it's also about Kaumara Bhritya, the treatment of the pediatric condition, and then of course the Kaya Chikitsa, where the physical disorders are treated, and hence शालाक्यतंत्रं कौमारं चिकित्सा कायिकी च या भूतविद्येति चत्वारि तन्त्रे तु उत्तरसंहिते भूतविद्या वाजीकर रसायन विधि विषतंत्र also are added in the Uttara Tantra. So Uttara Tantra gives a comprehensive idea about the total aspect of the medicine. Ashtanga Ayurveda is completed by reading the Uttara Tantra. So that's the one. And hence Uttara Tantra is also considered as a better chapter or better module. श्रेष्ठत्वाद उत्तरम हेतद तंत्रम आहुर महर्षयः बहुअर्थ संग्रहात् श्रेष्ठम उत्तरम वा अपि पश्चिमम. It's considered as one of the best component of the text, and hence it's given the name of Uttara Tantra. So that's about the comprehensive syllabus. Now the next part is syllabus is given. Now how to read and how to improve your performance. एतज्ज अवश्यम अध्ययम अधीत्य च कर्मापि अवश्यम उपासितव्यम उभयज्ञो हि पिशक राजार्हो भवति. You have to read the text, and it's not enough if you read the text. Whatever you have read in the text should be practiced, and that's practice is important. And a person who is skilled in both the theory as well as the practice only becomes a good physician, capable physician. And there, Sushruta says again very popular statements of Sushruta, which are generally considered as the highlights of Sushruta Samhita. Yastu kevala shastrajnaha कर्मसु अपरिनिश्चितः समुह्यति आतुरं प्राप्य भीरु विवाहम्. यस्तु कर्मसु निष्णातो धास्यात् शास्त्र बहिष्कृतः ससत्सु पूजां नाप्नोति वधं त्यर्च्छति राजतः. उभावेतौ अनिपुणौ असमर्थौ स्वकर्मणि अर्धवेदधरा वेदौ एकपक्षौ इव द्विजौ. A person who knows about only the theory but he is not skilled in the practice, then such a person will be a coward, like running away from the war field, like a coward running away from the war field. He may not continue his practice. We have many of our alumni, old students who are not practicing and who are doing some other business and flourishing in the business. That's one category of incomplete physicians or incomplete training. Another group of the people are those who do not bother about the theory, but somehow gain the skill of practice. In the current situation, once you go into the medical profession, you will have the professors of the profession. Professors of the profession are the medical representatives, and medical representatives will teach you like how to prescribe the medicines. And most of the times, the practitioners give more respect to those representatives than their teachers. Such persons who are practicing, they may flourish in the practice, but they do not deserve respect from the society. Sasatsu pujam napnoti. they cannot be respected by the society. And in those days, the law regulating the medical practice was very rigid. And Sushruta says such a person should be terminated or should be executed. Bodham Chachita as the death sentence is suggested for a person who practices without the theory knowledge, but only with the somehow gaining the skill, he is supposed to have a death sentence by the administration of that period. So legal control of the medicine in that day, during those days, is another issue. A bit more of the detail of that legal control, we'll come to that when we go into the next chapters, coming chapters. An ideal physician should be skilled in both theory as well as the practice, and Sushila compares that to a bird flying with two wings. So when both the wings are proper, a bird can fly. If one wing is not capable, that bird cannot fly properly. The same is again repeated. Now that Sushila gives more stress upon these issues of a proper knowledge for the physician. ओषध्यः अमृतकल्पास्तु शस्त्र अशनि विशोपमाः भवन्ति अज्ञैः उपर्दः तस्मादेतान् विवर्जयेत्. Medicines which can really make the person live, which are as good as the nectar, amrita, they can be as harmful as a weapon or maybe a lightning or like a poison. A medicine which is improperly used can injure a person like a shastra, or it can instantly kill like a lightning, or it may gradually kill like a poison. And hence, a person who doesn't have a knowledge of the medicine, if he uses the medicine, such a person should be avoided. स्नेहादिषु अनभिज्ञः यश्चेद्यादिषु कर्मसु स निहन्ति जनं लोभात् कुवैद्यः नृपदोषतः. If a person who is not skilled in his practice and they skilled in the techniques of the practice could be either snehadi kriya like the woman virachana etc., or chedyadi, the surgical procedures. If they are not skilled, if a such person is allowed to practice, then the problem would be, or the big blame would be on the administration. Ripadoshatah, the such a kuvaidya, a bad physician, if he is practicing, then the blame has to be on the administration, the king. So there again is again a stress upon the same issue. The legal control of the medical practice in those days was very rigid and very strong and meaningful. यस्तु उभयज्ञः मतिमान् ससमर्थो अर्थसाधने आहवे कर्म निर्वोढुं द्विचक्रः स्यन्दनो यथा. Now again another example. It's a repetition of the same idea of previous sentences, but because of the importance, so should stresses upon that part. Like a person who is skilled in both the theory as well as the practice is compared to a, a vehicle with the two wheels and where both the wheels are proper. Of course, in those days, the vehicles used in the warfield were having only two wheels. Now you have vehicles with plenty of wheels, multiple wheels, and the condition of all the wheels is quite important. And if all the wheels are not conditioned properly, the functioning of that vehicle would not be proper, and hence you have to give attention to all the aspects of the study as such. And hence, what Sushruta says is, Athavatsa Tadetad Adhyayam Yatha Tatha Upadharaya Maya Pratyamanam. The uh, the exchange of the ideas in the classroom of the Sushruta in Gurukula would be, the teacher would be dictating or maybe giving a deductive lecture to the student, and the student has to attentively hear that whatever is told in the classroom. Tadetad adhyayam yatha tatha upadharaya maya prachamanam. Now, how the student has to sit in the classroom, discipline in the classroom. अथ शुचये कृतबुत्तरासङ्गाय अव्याकुलाय उपस्थिताय अध्ययनकाले शिष्याय यथाशक्ति गुरुः उपदिशेत् पदं पादं श्लोकं वा ते च पदपादश्लोकाः भूयक्रमेण अनुसन्धेयाः एवम् एकैकशो घटयेत् आत्मना च अनुपठेत् अद्रुतम् अविलम्बितम् अविशङ्कितम् अनुनासिकं सुव्यक्ताक्षरम् अपीडितवर्णम् अक्षिभ्रुवोत्सहस्तैः अनभिनीतं सुसंस्कृतं नाचिच्यैः नाक्नीचैश्च स्वरैः पठेत्. The method of exchange would be, the student would be sitting in a classroom with the upper part of the body covered with a cloth, Krita Uttarasangaya, and the student should come to the class after having a bath, should be clean, and avyakulaya, the student should have a full attention on the subject, should not be disturbed otherwise. Upasthitaya, student would be sitting in the classroom. Earlier too, it was the same. Today also it is the same. Shishya yatha shakti guru upadisheta. The teacher would be teaching the student as such. The yeah, and it's not the quantity of the subject which is important. Instead, it's how the student would follow, and a total description of the subject should be the criteria to decide how much is to be studied. It could be padam, padam, shlokama. It could be a single word in a class, or it could be one fourth of a shloka, or one shloka, or so on. Now, once the teacher teaches any topic, student has to follow it, and then she has to recollect the subject again, and she has to repeat that whatever he has studied in his mind. That anusandhana, student has to repeat whatever he has seen and heard in the classroom in his mind, and that only makes him capable of retaining the subject which he has studied. एवं एकैकश घटयत् आत्मना च पठेत. So this way, every word or every sentence or every chapter has to be followed. And when you read, the method of reading is it should not be too fast, adrutam, or it should not be too slow, avilambitam, and it should be very clear, avishankitam. It should not be producing confusion. Anunasikam, we are not supposed to use nasal tone. A clear word has to be, a clear tone has to be prescribed or has to be used, and all the letters should be pronounced properly. Suvyaktaksharam, apitita varnam. Unnecessary stress on any area should not be given, and you are not supposed to show physical activity during the study. Reading, akshibhuvostahastehi anabhinitam. Drama is not a part of the teaching as well as learning, and it should be decent, susamskritam, and should not be too loud or too low voice of reading. Now, once this kind of exchange is done, during that course of the study, nacha antarena kashchit vrajeta tayoho adhyanayoho, that exchange between the teacher and the student is considered as very auspicious, and no one is supposed to intervene during that interaction between the student and teachers. So those who attempt to join even the online courses later and then permission in between, these are not what Sushruta has suggested. Of course, offline classes, you may close the door, but in online classes, the issue is something different. Now, the how to get the skill, the perfection in the study. The perfection in the study, again, very classical and very highlighted sentences of Sushruta. I would always consider these sentences as the most critical sentences of Sushruta Samhita. Shuchihi Guruparaha Dakshaha Tandra Nidra Vivartitaha Patan Netena Vidhina Shishya Shastrantam Apniyata. The student should be physically, mentally clean. It's not only physical cleanliness. Guru Paraha should be obedient to the teacher. When you say obedient to the teacher, that doesn't mean that you should follow everything told by the teacher. Instead, you should follow only with those which are really meaningful, and it should be no, for the welfare of the student. Then Tantra Nidra Vivarjita. During the course of study, as a student, you are supposed to have a control over your sleep as well as the laziness. That has to be avoided. And if you follow this, then Patanetana Vidina Shishya Shastrantam Apniyat, then only you can become or reach to the end of the course. So to complete the course, it's not a question of examination. Now, of course, to get through the examination, you have plenty of other methods. But what Sushruta has suggested is you should be you could be able to get through the examination only by following the guidelines. And the guidelines are Shuchihi Guru Parha Daksha. Daksha is Nityabhishaktaha. You should be following the study regularly. Study every day. That's the Daksha. Nitya Abhiyuktaha is Daksha. Then the Tandra word, which is often translated as laziness, The laziness is not a very correct translation for the Tandra word. The definition of Tandra is Indriyartheshu asamvitihi gauravam jimbanam klamaha nidrartasya vesyaha tasya tandram vinirdishayat. This is what the commentary says. A person who is not really focused on what he sees or what he hears, but still he is there, physically there, but not mentally there, and who feels heaviness and who yawns in between, or who feels tiredness, who feels like as if he is going to sleep. These are the conditions of description of the Tantra. Now, another very important sentence is to gain the perfection in the subject, you should go step by step. The capabilities have to be increased step by step. And those steps of gaining a knowledge and gaining a perfection in the study, as well as a communication ability, are Vaksaushave, Arthavijnane, Pragalbhye, Karmanepune, Tadabhyase, Siddhau, Yateta, Adhyanantagaha. The first of the step is Vaksasava. You should be able to read and pronounce whatever you have studied properly. And Arthavijnana, the next is you should know the exact meaning of what you have read. Then the Pragalbhya. Pragalbhya is the broader aspects of the knowledge. It's not only what the word would say, but we call as reading in between the lines. You should be knowing the exact contextual meaning of the sentence and when to apply that applicability of whatever you have studied in the context is the pragalpya. Karma Naipune is the skill of profession. The skill has to be attained. Skill of profession can gain in two stages. The first is observation, the next is participation. The first is you have to observe your teacher doing whatever is done. The next is you have to participate, and this has to gain gradually. It's not enough if you do it once, it has to be repeated. Tadabhyaseta. That repetition of whatever you have studied is the abhyas. That results in siddhi. Siddhi is the perfection. The siddhi is defined as arabdha abhipretartha sadhanam siddhi. Whatever you wish and whatever you start, it should be concluded. Capacity to conclude the whatever is started and whatever is wished is considered as a siddhi. Of course, from Indian mythology in Purana, the siddhis also are named in a different manner, and those are considered as Ashtasiddhi, and those Ashtasiddhi are Anima, Mahima, Tiva, Garima, Laghima, Tata, and Ishtapata Prapti Devata, Prakamyascha Tata, Ishatvam, Voshitvam Cha Aparam. The Ashtasiddhi are Anima, Mahima, where you can increase or reduce the size of your body. This is what the text says. Now, whether it's physically practically possible or not is not the issue. The other is prapti revata. Whatever you wish, it should be gained. And prakamyancha, control over the desire is prakamya. Ishatvam and vashitvam, being in the leadership is ishatva, and vashitva is a capacity to control others. These are considered as a siddhi. So it's sort of siddhi is ultimately a capability to achieve any of the results without efforts and perfect. That perfection is, with ease or with comfort is the siddhi, and that should be the target. The target should be to achieve a perfection with zero error. Now we use a word, commonly used word as a zero error, and of course surgery is a field where zero error is always the target, and hence that effort should be over to achieve that, and this can be achieved only by a step-by-step protocol, and hence I always say sushruta is it's not only about the medicine, it's about the education even, and there cannot be anything better than this to give any idea about the education. So, Sushruta Samhita gives a idea of the educationists too. With that, we'll conclude that chapter, and the next chapter uh, is a Prabhashaniya Adhyaya. Prabhashaniya Adhyaya is about the discussion, how the discussion has to be considered, and the importance of the discussion in the medical profession. Prabhashana is simply it's Adhita Shastra se punah arthato vyakhyanam prabhashana. Once you have studied whatever you have studied, it should be described verbally or verbal communication with the exact meaning is the Prabhashana. Of course, it's not only in Sushruta. Charaka also gives a high importance to the Prabhashana and the description of the rather exchange of the ideas or conferences, right? And the discussion among the physician is given high importance and given more detail in Charaka in Vimanasthana. And whatever we now consider in the current medical system, also it has the same issue. Once any new idea has come up, that new idea has to be tested and verified by a community. It's what we call as the peer review. The current word is peer review, and that peer review would be of both critical as well as with a positive approach. And that critical and positive approach is what's mentioned in Charakasthana as a Vyanasthana as a Sandhaya Sambhasha and Vigresha Sambhasha. So Bishak Bishajasa Sambhasheta Tadvidya Sambhasha hi Jnana Abhyoga Samharshakari Bhavati Vaisharadhyamapicha Abhinirvartati. It gives you a opportunity to enhance your knowledge as well as it improves your skill, your performance on the subject. Vachana Shaktimapi Adhatte. It gives a capability to communicate better. Yashascha Abhijayati, Abhijipayati. It gives you a name also. And Purashruteja Sandehotah Punashravanat Shruta Samshayam Apakarshati. If at all there is any doubt in whatever you have studied earlier, that doubt can be removed. Shruteka asandehavataha bhuyo adhyavasayam abhinirvartayati. Those who do not have any confusion, they can have a more and more encouraging sort of enterprising approach to the subject. Ashrumapi kanchid artham shrotra vishayam akadayati. There could be certain issues which you have not heard till now. They could be gained by attending a conference. यच्च आचार्यः शिष्याय शुश्रूषवे प्रसन्नः कर्मणा उपदिशति गुह्य अभिमतम् अर्थजातं तत् परस्परेण सह जल्पन् पिण्डेन विजिगीषुः आह संहर्षात्. So when you attend a conference, you will gain information from many sources and many categories of information, and in those days the discussion would be of either a Vigrasha Sambhasha or Sandhaya Sambhasha, where somebody would be trying to criticize a critical approach or maybe a synthetic approach. Now, Sushruta gives the same, the importance of the Sambhasha. Adhikatamapi Adhyayanam Aprabhashitam Arthatakharasya Chandana iva kevalam Parishramakaram bhavati. भवति चात्र यथा अखरश्चन्दन भारवाही भारस्य व्यक्ता न तु चन्दनस्य एवं शास्त्राणि बहूनि अधीत्य अर्थेषु मूढाः खरवद्वहन्ति. Even after gaining your examination, getting through the examination, if at all you have to improve your skill, that skill can be improved only by having a mutual discussion or exchange with the experts in the field, and simply carrying that theory knowledge without that capacity or without that skill of performance. Sushruta says that it's as good as a donkey carrying the weight of sandalwood. Of course, whether really the donkey knows the value of sandalwood or not, these are all the controversial issue. And we believe that the donkey doesn't smell the chandana. Okay, that's the other way. But it's a popular notion like donkey is considered to be an inferior animal and man is the one who controls. And the donkey doesn't know the value of the load which is carried, is only carrying the load. So those who carry heavy books without knowing the meaning, they are compared to the donkeys as such. Now, about the Tadvidya Sambhasha and method of gaining the knowledge, Charaka Samhita gives again the same whatever is mentioned in Sushruta, but gives more classical or more classified information about that. How to gain the knowledge is Adhyayanam, Adhyapanam, Tadvidya Sambhashati Upayaha. To gain the knowledge, Charaka Samhita says about the three steps: Adhyayanam, the self-study, study and then gain the perfection. Then Adhyapanam, any a postgraduate student should be in a teaching profession at least for 3 years. If at all, he has to gain perfection. This is what I always say. Like, if you are in the teaching profession for many years, then you become stale. But a few years, you have to be in the teaching profession. Then the next is Tatvidya Sambhasha, that discussion among the experts in the field. These are the important three methods of the gaining the knowledge. and this is a very perfect method of gaining knowledge. No education is of the current day can suggest anything better than this. So that's the ultimate. So Ayurveda is not only about treatment and diseases; it gives many other aspects of the life. One of them is the education, and in the education field, the model of education given by Ayurveda is a real highest standard of model of education, and it should be followed as it is. That's what, and it can give a model to the future world. This is what I always feel. Now, of course, the Adhyayana Vidhi, again, it's the same, whatever is mentioned in the Samhita. Otherwise, in the Sushruta Samhita, Kalyaha, Kritakshanaha, Pratotthaya, Vyusham Chakritva, Avashyakam, Upasprisya Udakam, Deva Shivo Brahmana Guru Vruddha Siddha Acharyobhya Namaskritya, Same Shuchau Deshe Sukhopavishtya Mana Purasarabhi Vagbhi, Sutram Anukraman Puna Puna Avartayeta Buddha, Samyag Anupravisharthatvam, Sadosha Pariharartham, Paradosh Pramanartham, एवं मध्यम दिने अपराह्ने रात्रौ च शश्वत अपरिहाय अध्ययनम् अभ्यस्येत् इति अध्ययनविधिः. Now, the study of method of study mentioned in Charaka is almost the same as that of what's mentioned in Sushruta as such. Now, the further तत्र तस्मात् सविंशम् अध्यायशतम् अनुपदपादश्लोकम् अनुवर्णयितव्यम् अनुश्रोतव्यं च. You are not supposed to neglect any component of the subject. You cannot just classify the subject as something as important, something as less important, and something could be neglected. That's not the method of study. Sushruta says you have to follow every word, every chapter of the all the chapters of the Samhita, and every word has to be given equal importance. Anupada pada shlokam anuvarnaitavyam. Each and every word has to be explained properly and should be studied properly. The reason is kasmat सूक्ष्म ही द्रव्य रसगुण वीर्य विपाक दोष धातु मल आशय मर्म शिरा स्नायु संध्यस्ति गर्भ संभव द्रव्य समूह विभागाः तथा प्रणश्च शल्योद्धरण व्रण विनिश्चय भग्न विकल्पाः साध्य याप्य प्रत्याख्येयता च विकाराणाम् एवम् आदेश्च अन्ये विशेषाः सहस्रशो ये विचिन्त्यमानाः विमल विपुल बुद्धिरपि बुद्धिम् आकुलीकुर्युः किं पुनः अल्पबुद्धेः तस्मात् अवश्यम् अनुपदपादश्लोकम् अनुवर्णयितव्यम् अनुश्रोतव्यं च. The field where you go in from the treatment method, medical point of view, you would be dealing with lots of subjects, and it's essential. This subject would be about studying of the medicine, Dravya Rasaguna Virya Vipakaha, the pharmacology, and Dosha Dhatu Marashaya Marma Sirasnaya Sandhyasti, the study of the physiology and anatomy, and Garbha Sambhava Dravya Samuha Vibhagaha, the the effects of the medicine over the body and the physiological changes. Pathology also has to be studied. Then the surgical implications, pranasthesya uddharana pranamishya bhagna vikalpaha. Then prognosis of the disease has to be studied. So the subject is quite vast, and it will have many nuances. And Sushil says it is a sahasrashoya vichityamana. It could be innumerable variations, and those innumerable scope of the subject is so much that a person with the extraordinary capacity, vimala vipala buddhi herapi, even a person with an extraordinary capacity to retain and receive may get confused. And kim punaha alpa buddhi hai. So if at all you are of a alpa buddhi category, your intelligence is comparatively lower, what would be the fate? And hence, you are not supposed to neglect even a single word in the Samhita. Every word has to be followed. At the same time, it's not enough if you study only one subject. You also have to study whatever is relevant in the other relevant subjects also. अन्य शास्त्रोपन्नानां च अर्थानाम् इह उपनीतानाम् अर्थवशात् तेषां तद्विद्येभ्य एव व्याख्यातम् अनुश्रोतव्यं च. कस्मात् न हि एकस्मिन् शास्त्रे शक्यः सर्वशास्त्राणाम् अवरोधः कर्तुं. भवन्ति तत्र एकं शास्त्रम् अधीयानो न विद्यात् शास्त्रनिश्चयं तस्मात् बहुश्रुतशास्त्रं विजानीयात् चिकित्सकः. So it's not enough if you study only one part of the science or one component of the science. There could be many other contexts where the other parallel science subjects also have to be studied, and those parallel subjects also have to be studied properly in a proper manner. And only those who have a broad-based knowledge can become a good physician. Tasmat bahushruta. A physician has to have an idea of lots of other information, lots of other subjects. It's not only that he knows about the medicine, he has to deal with a patient of different setup, different social conditions, and he should be able to communicate with the patient properly. And this would be possible only when he has a linguistic capacity, he has a capacity to understand the situations, he has a capacity to have a wavelength a same wavelength to deal with the patient as such. So that's one. Now, another important statement of Sushruta is you can learn from many other sources, but the learning should be from a proper methodical source. And that proper methodical source is the institutional training, Gurukula. Now, Shastram Gurumukhodgiram Adaya Upasya Asakrata. Those who have followed that methodical course of study, in those days it was Gurukula, now it is the university which gives you the degree, and those who have followed that kind of a method and then gain the knowledge, they only can be considered as the Vaidyas, Anyetu, Taskaraha, others are considered as thieves. So, untrained or improperly trained physicians, they are criticized as the thieves by Sushruta. And what Charaka says is almost the same issue. Nataiva hasti sutram ayurvedasya param tasmat apramatah shashvat abhiyogam asmin gachet etaccha karyam evam bhuyashcha vritta svastavam anasuyata parebhyopi agamedavyam. So whenever there is a knowledge, that knowledge has to be gained. And what Charaka says is Krishno hilokaha buddhimatam acharyaha shatruscha buddhimatam. The knowledge can gain from any corner of the world. Every component of the whole world can be your teacher if you have that capacity to observe. So that these are the important issues about the method of education and a highlighted method of education of Ayurveda. औपधेयनम औरभ्रम सौषधम पुष्कलातम शेषाणाम शलितंत्राणाम मूलानि एतानि निर्दिशेत. This kind of a methodical study is the basic source for all that the Samhitas. In those days, probably it's not only Sushruta who had written, other colleagues of Sushruta also had written some books, but unfortunately those books are not available now. For us, it is the Sushruta Samhita which alone is available. Anyway, the method of study would be a methodical study and gaining a perfection in the skill, and then the later you need to preserve it in the form of book or maybe communicate to the others. This is the whole cycle of the knowledge which was existing in India. And it's not only about Ayurveda. This kind of cycle of Guru Shishya Parampara, it is a standard protocol for all the subjects, all Veda, Sangeeta, etc. In all that, it's the same protocol. And Ayurveda also has lived through that protocol. And somehow, because we have missed that link of protocol in between, we are in a it is maybe critical situation. So somehow this has to be revived at least partially. With this, we conclude the fourth chapter, Social Samhita Sutastane Prabhashaniyo Nama Chaturthodhyaya. And it's also time also. So if there are any questions, I'll try to answer and then we'll conclude today. Okay, there are no questions, I think. Sorry. Fine. So we'll conclude today.